All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real head-scratcher, a $1 billion question, really. Companies are spending an absolute fortune on tech to make us, the customers, happier. But is it working? Are we actually any more satisfied? On the surface, it seems like a no-brainer, right? Companies grab these super fancy customer relationship management systems, you've probably heard of them, CRMs, all to, get to know us better, serve us faster. And they're spending so much money on them. But the weird part? The results for customer happiness are all over the place. It's this massive disconnect, and that's exactly what we're going to dig into. And believe me, this isn't some new thing. This quote here, it's from a study way back in 2009, and it shows the pressure to get these CRMs has been on for a long, long time. They're basically seen as the ultimate weapon in this constant battle for our loyalty. The big promise is always the same. We'll get smarter, we'll make better decisions, and we'll build this unbreakable bond with you, the customer. So what is a CRM really? The best way to think about it is it's not just one app or program. It's the whole strategy a company uses to manage its relationship with you. The idea is to track every single interaction. I mean, everything, from the first time you click on their website to that 100th time you call customer support, all to make the experience feel totally seamless. Okay, so to really crack this case, we have to get into the psychology of what makes us happy or unhappy as customers. And it really boils down to just two words: expectation versus experience. Just think about it for a second. That feeling of being satisfied or, totally let down, it all happens in the gap between what you thought was going to happen and what actually happened. If the experience is what you expected, cool, you're satisfied. If it's worse, you're annoyed. And if it's better, you're thrilled. It's that simple little calculation that literally defines how we feel about a company. But this whole thing creates this really tricky problem. It's called the ratchet effect. So picture this. You go to a coffee shop, and the barista remembers your super complicated 6-part order. The first time, it's awesome. You're like, wow, they really get me. But what about the next time you go in? Now you kind of expect them to remember. That amazing little touch just became the new normal, the bare minimum. And now, just meeting that expectation doesn't give you that wow feeling anymore. And that right there perfectly explains the problem for businesses. It's what the researchers call a delicate balancing act. Trying to always exceed expectations is like walking a tightrope. You get stuck in this loop where you have to constantly one-up yourself just so people aren't disappointed. It becomes this constantly moving target. And yeah, tech is supposed to help with that, but, well, it's a lot more complicated. So how do we actually know where it's all going wrong? Well, for the evidence, we're going to go back to that 2009 study I mentioned. It was set up specifically to figure out what was happening in the real world. And their method was so simple, it was brilliant. They went to Mumbai and they found 150 customers of companies that were definitely using these big CRM systems. Think banks, insurance companies. Then they gave each person 2 really simple things to do. First, describe the ideal company. Then, describe the real company they do business with. And just like that, you've got a perfect comparison between the dream and the reality. So now they've got all this data, right? Thousands of answers. They used some pretty heavy-duty statistical analysis to just sift through it all. The point wasn't to look at every single answer, but to find the hidden patterns, to pull out the big underlying themes, the stuff that really matters to customers, both in their expectations and their actual experiences. And this is where we get to the first big aha moment of the study. When they looked at all the answers about the ideal company, they figured out what customers actually want most. And honestly, the answer might not be what you think. Just look at this. Look at the breakdown. When people described their perfect company, the answers were just overwhelmingly human. You've got customer care and empathy making up more than half of the pie. And then tangibles, the shiny website, the modern tech, that stuff was way, way down the list. And let's be super clear about what these words mean in this context. Customer care wasn't about the tech. It was about, do you genuinely care about solving my problem? Empathy was about feeling like a person, not just account number 74B. That's what they wanted. Tangibles, that was the tech, the slick websites and all that. The message from customers couldn't be clearer. They were desperate for the human touch more than anything else. Okay, so we know what people want. We have the ideal. But now for the big one. How does that stack up against what they're actually getting? And this is where it gets really good. Right, this is the billion-dollar question we started with. With all this expensive CRM tech that's supposed to build better relationships, were these companies actually delivering on that human stuff? The care, the empathy? Or was the tech doing something else entirely? And here we go. This table right here, this is the core of the whole thing. So these numbers, they're on a scale up to 1, showing how important something was versus how well the company performed. Now just look at the top 3 rows. That's all the human stuff. Sincere interest in solving a problem. Customers said that was super important, like a 0.832. But the company's performance? A 0.744. That's a negative gap. Same story for willingness to help. Negative gap. Personal attention? Another negative gap. But now look at the bottom row, the tech. A visually appealing website. That was the only thing where the company's performance was actually better than what customers expected. You can't really argue with that, can you? The conclusion is just staring us in the face. The companies were absolutely crushing it on the tech side, building those slick websites that their CRMs are great for, but they were completely dropping the ball on the human stuff, the things customers said they wanted the most. Put it this way, the technology was working just fine. The human touch? Not so much. So that brings us to the final takeaway here. The study gives us a really clear, really powerful answer to that question we asked at the start. I mean, the researchers basically say it all in their own conclusion. The things customers cared about most, empathy, being responsive, making them feel secure, those were the exact things that weren't being addressed. So after all that money, all that tech, the most important customer needs were just being ignored. And this isn't just about, hurt feelings. This has a massive impact on the bottom line. The study brings up that old business rule you've probably heard. It's 5 times more expensive to get a new customer than it is to keep one you already have. So when these companies fail on the human stuff, they're not just making people unhappy. They are literally burning through money trying to replace all the customers who are walking out the door. So what's the fix? Well, it's definitely not get rid of technology. No way. The real solution is to use the tech to make the human connection stronger, not to get rid of it. The study points to a really clear path forward. You got to close those gaps we saw on the table. That means training people for real empathy, giving your employees the power to actually help people quickly, and building trust by, actually doing what you say you're going to do. That's how you flip those negative numbers into positives. And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. In this huge rush to make everything more efficient, to automate everything, it's a question for all of us, not just for big companies. Are all these amazing tools we have actually helping our relationships? Or are they slowly taking the place of the real human connections that, at the end of the day, are what really matter? Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.